overstepping our foundational document in Aotearoa. So this document is open to criticism based on Te Tiriti approach. So we hope that the relevant stakeholders will take that up there, and also through the parliamentary process that will be taken into consideration. The organizations who met a few weeks ago were Migrants Against Acceptable Standard of Health Aotearoa, Unite Union, ETU Union, Workers First Union, Migrant Action Trust, Socialist Aotearoa, Migrant Workers Association, Migrant Rights Network. If I have missed anyone out, please put your hand up and I will include you. So like I said, what we'll do is we'll have like very, very brief kōrero from the representatives from each one of those organizations. For some of you, it may be repetition because we met a few weeks back, but I think it's important to discuss what's been finalized before we hand it over to MPs, politicians. So I'll also acknowledge in attendance we have Ricardo Menendez-March from the Green Party, who's always been on side. We also have Hena Pia Baral, I hope I'm saying your name right, Labour Party candidate for Upper Harbour. Thank you. And we have Ibrahim Omar, who has been MP from the Labour Party and always has a listening ear for migrant issues. I guess all three of you have done the immigration journey yourself, so that gives us confidence that we will be in good hands once we hand this over to you. So first up, we will, I'm not going to invite to stage, but we will take the stage to her. Onia from MASHA, Migrants Against Acceptable Standard of Health Aotearoa, who will say a few words. Okay, that's even better. We're going to get Onia right here. Why not?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me. So just want to mihi to the mana whenua of this rohe, and also mihi to Anua Migrant Workers Association for bringing us together, to all of you and to our MPs in attendance. So my name is Onia. I'm an organiser with Migrants Against the Acceptable Standard of Health Aotearoa, or MASHA for short. So we are a migrant-based collective, grassroots collective, fighting against disability and health-based discrimination in Aotearoa's immigration system. And over the last 5 years, we have supported over 40 families and individuals impacted by this discrimination. So at this point, I'd love to hand over to Priyanka and Ankur Verma, who have been impacted themselves, to share a little bit about their experience. Kia ora.
Thank you, Anya. So like Anya said, we represent acceptable standard of health against policy. And we are here because we are one of the family who has been impacted by this policy. So this policy, we want it to be completely abolished because it's leading to a separation between the families. The one or two members or multiple members of the families are staying apart, which is actually impacting the well-being of the families. It impacts the productivity, it impacts everything. The entire family is kind of majorly impacted in a well-being state. Like they can't think straight, they can't contribute what they're here for. And we have seen and we have listened to so many families who are impacted, and like them, we are one of them. We have a child who is back in India. He's a special Down syndrome child, and we have been trying to bring him here from the last 8 years almost, and there's no success. We are the citizens of this country. We made this our home. And similar to us, we got other families who are trying to bring their family members over here, but they are unsuccessful. So these families are either separated, or I'll say they are on the verge of deportation, which is causing a grief between the families. And then on the other hand, we have seen so many successful cases who are able to bring their family members over here. And when we speak to them, we had a conversation with them, their moral boost is at a different level. They're able to contribute more to the society, to the economy. Their mental well-being is at a different level now. So we strongly urge the government to abolish this discriminatory, acceptable standard of health policy, so that as a migrant, we should be reunited or united with the families over here in New Zealand. Thank you. Over to you, Anya.
Yeah, I'm not so tall. Kia ora, Angkor, and thank you so much for speaking on behalf, of our group, to say that actually nobody should have to jump through these hoops. A lot of the people who have eventually managed to bring their disabled child here, or to have had some kind of success, have had to fight for years and years, so much paperwork, so much impact on well-being, as Uncle was saying. And we reject the idea that that should ever be necessary, because actually the upholding of that discrimination is a political choice. Tahu kukutai have called for, like manaakitanga, utu, aroha. So based on, the idea of hosting and caring, of mutuality and of love and compassion, to, in that vein, be able to welcome migrants with disabilities and health conditions here. And we have a petition in Parliament at the moment for that, and we call on all political parties in their election manifestos and election promises to commit to abolishing the acceptable standard of health requirements. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you, Ankur, Priyanka, and Onya. And without having to jump these hoops for acceptable standard of health, parents of children with disabilities, they have enough on their plate. Bharti and I have a 24-year-old who is on the spectrum and epileptic, so we fully feel the pain. We were just fortunate that our son was diagnosed at a very late age, and we'd already got our residence by then. Otherwise, we would be like many other families out there. But like I said, there are many, many other challenges that we deal with because the system does not provide enough support. Okay, I'll just quickly read what our kind of basic asks are, and then invite speakers. So, acceptable standard of health policy to be scrapped. Practice of attaching migrant workers to single employers must stop, because that's where we see most of the exploitation happening. And then those work visa holders, if they are on so-called lower skill jobs, they have to be out. They can only be here for 3 years, and even those who are higher skilled, they can only be here for 5 years, and then they must be out of New Zealand for 12 months. So we're asking for that 12-month stand-down period to be scrapped, especially for the lower skill jobs. Also, mid to low skill jobs for the work visas now have to fulfill an English language requirement, which is slightly lower, but for residents it's higher, and it's the same style English language test, which is very academic style, that is everybody from a surgeon to teacher to a midwife to a driver to a cafe worker to a cleaner is required to sit. It just does not make sense to expect people to be university academics when that's not their occupation. So we're asking for English language requirements for residents must be aligned with the occupation. And parent category residence policy must be reviewed, because at the moment you'll see migrants who have become residents or citizens here, everybody wants to be reunited with their families, and we can point to plenty of research internationally where if children grow up with their grandparents, that is the best situation possible for the next generation. But it's difficult for migrant families to bring their parents here because the income thresholds are so high. An average New Zealander does not earn that much. So, why are we making it difficult for families to be reunited? And finally, amnesty for overstayers. We have, they say, around 20,000 people in this country without visas, but I am pretty sure it's much higher because we don't have the means of knowing how many people here are without the visas. The last government had a perfect opportunity to do something about it when the then Prime Minister delivered the apology for the Dawn raids, but yeah, they missed out. So we are saying, no, do the right thing and grant visas to people who are here without visas, without documents. Just continuing the theme, I will invite around the exploitation on accredited employer work visas and a lot of other abuse that happens, I will like to invite Ivy from Etu Union just to share her experience very briefly. Sorry, okay, I'll announce. So next will be Shimona from Unite Union. Sorry, I shouldn't put people just on the spot without giving them a heads up, sorry. But you're a very good, confident speaker, so I think there'll be no problems. Over to Ivy.
Kia ora. I'm Ivy. Again, I'm from Etu Union, and I primarily work as a campaigns organizer, focusing on the pay equity campaign and the Safe Airports campaign. Also, the living wage campaign. So my work is primarily going to care and support workers and talking to them and knowing what they are going through in their employments. And right now, although there is a shift in the overall migrant situation, so around 70 to 80% of our care and support workers are now migrants, and majority of them are Filipinos and Indians. So despite this situation, there has been a major change in the sector because right now, the facilities, the aged care facilities, the support work companies now prefer hiring migrants on open work visas, or the partners of the one-off residency, the people who got the one-off residency in 2021. This is primarily because they can pay them minimum wage on casual work. And this has further devalued care and support work, which is essential in an aging population, which we expect will, there's a tsunami of an aging population coming in the next few years. And we see that there will be, a worsening situation if we don't address this issue. So, Etu Union is in solidarity, and we call for the next government primarily to end tied visas because despite the situation in the care and support work, we know and we recognize that the exploitation among workers, including care and support, is primarily rooted from tied visas linked to their employers, and this situation is the main reason why workers on accredited employer work visas are afraid to speak out. They are afraid to fight even for their minimum entitlements, even for 10-minute breaks, And we have seen this problem, this employment issue, not just in care and support, but in all industries, even for builders, because I am also an advocate for Migrante, Aotearoa. And so we also speak with builders in the construction industry. We also speak with bus drivers. And many of them experience these issues, that there are minimum entitlements, sick leave, 10-minute breaks, you know, just the basics of like having a dignified life in New Zealand is being taken away from them, and they are unable to speak because they are afraid of losing their status, their legal status in New Zealand. So we are in solidarity of calling for an end to tied visas, and we are in support. I just like to mention that we are in support of the call for an opt-out option for joining the unions. So yes, we thank the Greens Party for announcing that policy, and we hope that together we can call for a change in government this coming elections. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivy. Yeah, very important bill. So each and every one of us must make submissions for that bill. I forget when the timeline and the dates are, but we can share that through our networks. And also those people, migrants who have become now residents through RV21 and have the right to vote, they must exercise that right and just, you know, try to empathize and be compassionate of like current migrants who are on temporary visas being exploited like you were a long time ago. I can understand people are fearful of coming out and speaking and doing protests or what have you, but you can exercise your right to vote and vote this government out. That's what I would say, so that we can have political parties who have a listening ear and are more sympathetic with the migrants' cause. Next up, when we met, we had Simon from Unite Union with us joining, but today I think he is with us on the live stream, but we have Shimona, who is an organizer with Unite Union, and she will share with you all the kind of problems that Unite members are sharing with the union and what, again, the solution there is to stop tying the visas to single employers, and unionization of workers is the most important. So after Shimona, just a heads up, if I could invite Max from Workers First Union next after Shimona to tell us about the plight of the drivers especially and any other important matters you want to discuss. Thank you.
That's the perfect height, thank you. Kia ora, Shimona tōku ingoa, ko Shimona tōku ingoa. I organise fast foods workers on behalf of Unite, and fast foods workers are still Unite's largest membership base. We are a small private sector union, and that means we're acutely aware at all times. For every one worker who joins onto a collective agreement, we have hundreds more on their own. There is a tyranny of the individual employment agreements in an industry like hospitality. Even where we have our longest unionised employers will seize every gap in a bargaining unit to reimpose or seek to reimpose the tyranny and remove a lot of Union 1 conditions in that way. For example, we have noticed with one employer back in 2022 introduced some new wage roles that are outside of the collective agreement coverage, and those wage roles cover sort of supervisory roles on the shop floor. So we've got a situation where we have a collective agreement that covers a certain group of supervisors and more groups of supervisors who are not covered and have to be negotiated into coverage, which I anticipate already is going to be a bit of a battle. These roles, I suspect, and probably will be able to verify from mapping, that employers are more likely to recruit AEWV holders to these roles. And when I recently obtained a copy of an individual employment agreement for this role, it was unrecognizable, to be honest, from the typical conditions that we can expect from workers at that brand. So none of the normal allowances made it into that contract. There's not a cent of redundancy compensation, for example, and certainly none of the normal restrictions on employers to reduce the flexibility of the scheduling. So these employers are allowed to hyper-flexibly schedule the hours for these workers. The result of that is two worlds. We have one world where there are union rights and even there are pass-on conditions for union members, for non-union members, sorry. And the other world allows everything to be stripped away. Employers, by nature, we know, seek to expand that second world. We can see in all of the anti-worker legislation of the last few years that there is a systematic expansion of that second world. And the AEWV is an aid to that expansion. If the visa conditions are such that there is very little leverage left in that employment relationship, that we notice workers cannot even exercise their basic rights. I once assisted an AEWV holder who could not even bring himself to challenge an unfair disciplinary outcome because in that same month he was applying to extend his visa. So that he is living in the second world. And that second world is where our rights go to die. I am hopeful that all unions and our allies can understand when we are defending ourselves from attacks on our rights in the last few years, that we do have to stay strong on migrant rights. Certainly it's clear to Unite that the fight to open the visa is a fight for workers' rights that we want to win. Thank you.
Thanks, Shimona. Absolutely right. That RV21 that we mentioned, the Pathways to Residency petition that led to that visa, Unite Union was quite instrumental as a partner in that whole campaign. Absolutely important that workers join the unions. At the moment, Migrant Workers Association is helping a petrol station worker, so retail situation, and it's quite a small thing, but a big thing for the worker. So her site has been changed without consultation with her. And her employment agreement does not have a permanent location. It basically says like she can be made to work at any retail outlet that this petrol gas station company owns. And she didn't even know that she doesn't have a permanent location. So even such small things, well, technically small in terms of employment law, can have huge implications for the workers. Like she's being made to do a shift in the evening when she's actually supposed to look after her young baby, and there are many, many stories like that. So it's important that our workers do know their rights, and the best way to do that is by joining their union. Another union, Workers First Union, who have done much good work, and I want to acknowledge the petition that you already have out there that was presented to some of the MPs who are here today as well. So basically asking for the stand-down period to be suspended and English language requirements to be reviewed, and the practice of attaching our workers to employers to be stopped. So thank you for that good mahi that you do. So next up, Max from Workers First Union. And after that, I would request Sher Singh from Migrant Rights Network to come and share his thoughts as well about what he faces on the front lines. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Max. I'm from Workers First Union and also a coordinator of Union Network of Migrants and also Migrante Aotearoa. Anyway, the main issue with regards to migrants are, of course, them or us being treated as disposable workers. So basically, I've been going through the depots lately, the bus depots, and I've spoken with the bus drivers, and it's still the same. And I mean, a lot of bus drivers, and not just bus drivers, truck drivers are having a difficult time passing the English requirement. And what is this English requirement? As Anna stated earlier, it's academic level of English. It's 58 for IELTS and 6.5 for PTE. It's way too high. You know, the bus drivers, they would complain that, you know, they're not used to be in front of a computer typing, because in that test they have to type fast, and by default they would not be able to make it, just by simply, you know, they're not really college students, you know, and they didn't finish college. That's why they tell me if they had the opportunity to finish college, they wouldn't be driving the bus, okay? So it really makes sense that to lower the English requirement, it's being made as a barrier to their job security. So it's really unfair. And some bus drivers I've spoken with, they're already looking for other job overseas. You know, some are planning to go to Europe, and that's a sad reality, you know. I mean, they've been invited here. There was a bus shortage, there was a bus driver shortage, but they were not allowed to stay simply because their English is not good enough. So it's creating an underclass of migrants, of people who are disposable. It is by design. So I hope that the opposition parties come up with good legislation or good, you know, do away with these policies, because I appreciate Labor parties or Chris Hipkins' announcement that there's going to be a cap on the what do you call it, transportation bus fares. Yes, $20. But if we're going to have a shortage of bus drivers, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't work if we don't have enough bus drivers, right? So I do hope that we do away with this current administration or government, and our Workers' First Union is campaigning that those in power right now should be a one-term government. So that's all. Thank you.
Kia ora, Max. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, good policies like the cap on the fares can only work if we do have a complete workforce to run that sector. And, you know, the displacement of our migrant workers, you know, how many times are they going to move from one country to the other? Because Westminster-style parliaments pretty much have very similar policies, immigration policies, so they'll be just like, yeah, people can't forever move from one place to another. The uncertainty is just cruel. Yeah, and just another reminder that the RV21 was granted when Labour and Greens were in government, so they were able to do it back then. There's no reason why we can't have something similar again. And again, you know, not a one-off special, but a stable, continuous policy, immigration policy that would be good. Next up, Sher Singh from Migrant Rights Network, very passionate in this area, and no one goes without help once they contact Sher. So I'll ask him to come up and share his experiences and what he would like to see happen in this area. And after that, Joe's not here. I was going to invite one last speaker after Sher before we then request our MPs and politicians to take our request. So Sher.
Kia ora everyone, Sher Singh from Migrant Rights Network. Thank you, first of all, Migrant Workers Association, for organizing this event, and I want to acknowledge all the organizations that are here to support. I've got a lot to say, but I'll just sum it up. You know, organizations like Migrant Workers Association, Migrant Rights Networks, we've been campaigning for the migrant community for quite some time. And this includes when previous governments were in power. As Anu Koloti said, the previous government did have a lot of opportunities to fix issues, but they were not fixed. So yes, we want a government change. We are all screaming out, we want a government change, but we need some assurance. We need some assurance that when a government is changed, that these migrant workers who are not only getting exploited by their employers, but by the system, they get some justice. I can give you a scenario where, these migrant workers that are here right now, under this accredited employer work visa, they're getting exploited by the employers, but by the system. Just yesterday, I had this person talking to me, this worker, saying it's costing them up to $10,000 just to extend their visa. Up to $10,000. This includes going into their PTE classes, this includes their visa fees and all these other fees. So we need to put an end to this. We need a government which will listen, and not just listen, but implement something for these migrant workers. These workers came to this country to make a better future for themselves, not to be exploited. On a daily basis, there are migrant workers who are getting deported every single day because the system has made them an overstayer. The system has allowed them to be exploited by the employer. The system has allowed them to overstay their visas because they get cornered. They do not know where to go. So we are demanding, yes, we need a government change, but we are demanding a change for these migrants, not only these migrants that are here, but for the future migrants that are going to be arriving into New Zealand. Labour Party, the previous government, had the power to de-attach visas to these employers, but it wasn't done. Hence, we're in this situation today. And the situation is getting worse and worse as we speak. There are migrants going back home with a huge loan on their heads. They've sold their homes back home, came here for a better future, but now they're getting forced to be sent back where they have no home. It's a shame that New Zealand is treating the migrant workers like this. It's a shame that New Zealand government opens these doors, welcomes these migrant workers, promises them a better future, a good job. But what are they left with? A huge loan on their head and a door back to their countries? We're putting the migrant workers into depression, anxiety. It's a shame what we're doing with this, with the migrant community and the workers. So yes, we need a government change, and yes, we need to demand that, okay, if the next government is coming in, we need in hard in writing, yes, we will do this for the migrant community. Yes, we will fix these loopholes, because these loopholes have been in the system for quite some time now. Everyone knows these loopholes. These employers who are exploiting their these workers are studying these loopholes. They are studying it, they are telling each other. They have these huge lawyers who are sitting there telling them, yes, these are the loopholes, use it. And by using these loopholes, our migrant workers are getting abused. And all I can say is enough is enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Cher. Very well said, loud and clear. And these are the working poor we are talking about. And that brings me to another point. We have visa categories, like I think the golden visa and some others, where applicants don't need to qualify for English. And if they spend enough money, they have the funds that the category requires them to have, they can just come in, and then their pathway to residence is so easy to follow. So, different rules for the rich for the working poor. That needs to stop as well. We need to have equity. Yes, I know. Thank you. Your mate won't be left out. Don't worry. Before we invite our MPs and politicians to take our requests, one last speaker from Socialist Aotearoa, Joe Carolan. Please come up, Joe, and share with us why an organization like SA is supporting this campaign. They were great supporters with the RV21, with the students who were deported, and just about every campaign that Migrant Workers Association has fought. Once again, we have Socialist Aotearoa here on our side, and Joe will share his thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu, and thank you everyone who's come today on a Sunday. 2 years ago, I went back home to Ireland, and I was shocked to see racists and fascists in a country like Ireland, which has been a migrant country. Hundreds of thousands of us have gone to other countries to help build them: England, United States, Canada, Australia, and here. And to come from a country where people have emigrated because of poverty and found friendship and livelihoods in other countries, and then to see hatred directed at refugees, at migrants. I don't know if you saw about a month ago in Belfast a pogrom where migrants and Muslims and black people and people of colour were hunted down street by street by the same right-wing forces that attacked us in the 60s and started the conflict for 30 years. Absolutely disgusting. Politicians like Winston Peters and Shane Jones, who whip up racism from on top in society and talk about tsunami, buttered chicken, mountains, whatever, are directly responsible for the kind of thugs that we saw outside the Modi protests last week. Remigration New Zealand. Young, angry white men dressed in black with masks on, ready to attack Indian people, Chinese people, gay and lesbian people because they're different, right? We do not want this kind of politics coming to New Zealand. But unfortunately, the coalition partners of the national government are the ones that are spreading this hatred from on top in society. And now we see organized racist and fascist groups forming in Auckland. Disgusting. Why are they doing this? Because there's a false argument that migrants are to blame for the unemployment, the poverty, and the inflation that we're... Unemployment and inflation are not caused by immigration. Bullshit. Come off it. The enemy is profit. And it's the rich who are encouraging the working class to divide themselves, to fight amongst themselves, and blame migrants for the poverty that the rich have caused in this country. Let's go back to COVID. And we've had some criticisms of the government at that time. And granted, we led a movement from below, the Pathways for Residency campaign, which won one of the greatest migration victories in the Western world in the last decade, per capita. 280,000 migrant workers won their residency, and Labour did grant that residency RV21 visa in the end. Credit where credit's due. Nearly 300,000 workers won their residency after the COVID debacle, where we saw migrants starving, losing their jobs. I was there doing redundancies in Sky City, where huge amounts of migrant workers were laid off with no support. And it was shocking. But in the end, we wrapped around and we give those people residency, right? People like Ricardo were there in the early days of that campaign, where it seemed unwinnable, where it seemed that the crisis was so huge we couldn't win every individual case for everybody. So we needed to try and make the government change. But when we got that change, when 280,000 migrant workers got the same rights through residency as Kiwi workers, what happened? All my cousins in Opotiki got jobs in the kiwi fruit picking thing at $38 an hour. That's what happens when you remove the reserve army of labour, when no longer migrants are second class, when no longer we have mass unemployment to keep wages down. Wages go up. And we all benefit. Kiwi workers benefit when migrants have full rights and can't be exploited like the AEW slave visa. Our comrade down the back here, who was nearly murdered by gangsters who used him as a slave in Henderson, right? We don't need this kind of society. Everybody should be on a decent wage. Everyone should have housing, and migrants are not to blame for that. Migrants work hard. Migrants pay their taxes. Migrants bring resources. Migrants arrive here educated. How many people with great degrees are wasted as Uber drivers or whatever, right? So don't give us this crap about you need more education to work here as well. But when we remove those discriminations against migrant workers, all workers benefit, all workers lift, and society is much better. Let's not go down the road that we see in America and England with these right-wing people bringing through fascism, with ICE, smashing up communities. Let's stand together and let's take hope from what we've seen in the biggest democracy in the world. Yesterday and this morning, the cockroaches. The cockroaches have risen up, have shown the right-wing governments that if we stay on the streets, use our power like we did with the Pathways to Residency campaign, like we should do now in the next 4 months to get rid of this racist right-wing government and bring in a new government that can change, that can listen to migrant workers. This is our cockroach moment, right? So don't feel weak. Don't feel helpless. The unions are here, some of the biggest unions. The parties of the left are here. We have 4 months to get rid of these buggers, you know. Let's do it. Let's unite together. And well done to the Migrant Workers Association, to Anu and Barty, who've always been there through the struggle. Lal Salam, Inchilab Zindabad.
Thank you, Joe. Before I invite our MPs and politicians up on the stage, just very quickly, the summary of what we're asking: replace the accredited employer work visa with open work visa. That way, our migrant workers are not tied to a single employer. Scrap the 1 year stand-down period, especially for the lower skill jobs, but for all jobs. Align English language requirements for residents with the line of work that the applicant is in. Scrap acceptable standard of health policy, because people should not be viewed as economic units. We are all human beings. Review parent category residence policy and grant amnesty to overstayers. So these are people who are already here in Aotearoa. So it's not as if we're asking for the floodgates to be opened up. This is people who are already here. And as far as saying that migrants are taking the homes and they're causing the traffic, migrants are helping to build those homes. Migrants are building those roads in the construction sector. Migrants are looking after the aged. Migrants are looking after the elderly and the sick and the disability sector people. So, there are many, many ways in which the migrants contribute, not just by working and paying income tax. They form the social fabric of this society now. So we are much better united together, rather than sitting in our silos and individual boxes based on whatever criteria that the divisive and the racist people may want to use. So it's better to come together and fight the system rather than fight each other, because we are all the same and we all bleed the same color, whether we came here hundreds of years ago or whether we arrived here a few days ago. So we're in this together. There is another event after this, which I want to share with you before we wrap up. There at Altia Square at 5 p.m., there is a solidarity event with the students who have been protesting in India for education reform. And they've, like Joe mentioned, the Cockroach Party and then the other, mostly Gen Z, that they've been protesting on the streets in tens of thousands. And they have put enough pressure on a fascist right-wing government that the education minister resigned yesterday. So that goes to show when we come together and make a stand, we do get victories. But their struggle is to continue. There's much more they need to fight for. So there's a solidarity event at 5 p.m. in Altia Square. So I request you all to join us there. Next up, before we wrap up, I'm going to invite Ricardo, Hannah, and Ibrahim to come up here and receive our request and also share their thoughts and say a few words. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa ko Hana Pia Baral, toko ingoa, born in the Philippines but came to Aotearoa in my late teens, and I am Labour's candidate for Upper Harbour. I always appreciate coming to these events and really appreciate the work that our communities are doing and our community groups are doing, because if not for your work, a lot of these issues will not be highlighted as something that needs to be fixed and needs to be addressed. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for coordinating these things, and thank you for putting this together to ensure that the political parties who care about the rights of migrant workers have the opportunity to consider these policies that are being put in front of us as part of our consideration, as part of our policy development in the future. So thank you very much for your time. And it is a real privilege to be here and to listen to the issues firsthand and ensure that we understand what's going on the ground. So thank you very much.
I'm thinking if we just hear from MPs and politicians, and then maybe if we all come together just there while we hand this document over, and then we're all part of the process then. Yeah. Once.
Namihinui kia koutou katoa. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim. I'm Labour list candidate and also former Labour MP, but also a refugee somehow who was also exploited by employers. I just want to start with echoing Hannah's sentiment that Anu, you, Chair, and others. We just want to thank you for the work that you have done. You continue to do. I think you kept this issue alive, and you continue to fight for this voiceless, vulnerable migrant workers who are actually very important in making this country or moving this country forward. Obviously, this is something that's really dear to all of us, and many of us over many years through the unions and other work that we have done, we have spoken about this consistently. I just want to remind you that I do share, I get your frustration, and the politics sometimes gets in the way, and the political machine sometimes, it's not an easy thing. But I do want to tell you that the Labour as a party, as a movement, we actually care about this. And this is something that needs to be resolved. That consistently said that migrant exploitation is a black stain in this country's image, and it needs to be dealt with. So now our manifesto haven't come out yet, but it's coming out very soon. But you'll be hearing from Labour that there will be a clear commitment in these issues. And we will be working with you, Cher and Anu and others, to resolve this issue, because it's not good enough that people in 21st century in a country that calls itself a developed country like New Zealand being exploited. It's not good enough. It needs to be resolved. And you have my commitment, Hannah's commitment, our colleagues' commitment, our party's commitment that we will work with you to resolve this issue. Our manifesto is coming out very soon. Phil Twyford, who is our spokesperson on immigration, sent his apology. He couldn't be here with us, But he passed his regards and he said that you will be hearing from him very soon. But thank you so much.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Ricardo Menendez March. I'm a Green Party Member of Parliament and the immigration spokesperson. I just want to acknowledge the Migrant Worker Association, Masha, Unite Union, Socialist Aotearoa, E2, Workers First, Migrante, and many others who have been working on these issues. For us in the Greens, it's a pretty straightforward yes to the demands. All the demands are things that we have previously already committed to, spoken about, campaigned about, worked with you to push the government to actually bring about change. So I can give you a hand-on-heart commitment, not just for myself, but our political party, that these are things that we are fighting for. Our manifesto released today, and you will see that many of our policies in the manifesto are very explicitly connect to the demands that you have presented to us today. And for us, these are things that we'll be fighting for to push a future government and our political allies to actually implement in any change of government. Our negotiating positions and strength rely on the strength of our vote. So I invite you to fight for the future that you want and to join the movements that are fighting for the change that you deserve, whether it is opt-out union membership, whether it is fair pay agreements or a tax system that is brave enough to tax the wealthy few so that we can fund the public services that we deserve. I want to reflect lastly on the fact that these wins cannot be won alone by politicians in Parliament. We rely on movements on the ground, connecting with people in the communities, and the work that you're all doing is critical. But we have to supercharge this movement so that we can put political pressure on the political parties of the right that wish to pit migrants and locals against each other while billionaires continue to rip us off. So thank you again for holding the space, for campaigning on these issues, and we give you our hand-on-heart commitment that these are policies that are reflected in our manifesto and our vision. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can request everybody to just come up here by the stage on the floor, and we together hand our request to Hannah, Ibrahim, and Ricardo, and we can also take a group photo at the same time. So please, everyone, join us here by the stage. Thank you.